Simone Bienne, you are a noted psychosexual and relationship therapist. You heard Jodie Arias talking about the Provo push. In other words, essentially trying to have sexual contact without it being labeled sexual contact, a grinding that doesn't involve removal of clothes. It reminds me of kind of like being a little bit pregnant. It's hard to have sexual contact without having sexual contact.
Exactly, Jane. I mean, come on. This isn't stuff that friends do. Any kind of grinding, or can be called frottage as well. That is a sexual engagement, and I don't buy all this stuff about the fact that you can't compartmentalize what sex is. She's talking about anal sex, oral sex. The clue is in the title. They're having sex of some description. What concerns me is when she said about when they were talking about oral anal sex, was it enjoyable? And she said it was painful at that time. So she's giving us an indication that actually there were times that clearly she did enjoy it. But they had this enmeshed, crazy, addictive, sexual power games that they were clearly both somehow getting off on.
Well, I guess the bottom line is all this irrelevant? Or do you think, Simone, that some member of the jury might decide, well, maybe she was sexually abused by him and she had to defend herself? I mean, it's a leap.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I speak to women day in, day out, and Jane, I'm sure you have friends, we all have friends who have had some kind of physical, emotional, sexual abuse from guys. Many of us have. And that doesn't mean that maybe in our fantasy we might feel like murdering them, but we control that fantasy, that murderous rage. She acted out on it, and just whatever happened, that doesn't entitle for a man to be killed and murdered in such a horrific, degrading, sick way.
Well, you mentioned the word degrading, and I'm wondering if, given the fact that she felt she was degraded, if she decided to make this killing particularly degrading. In other words, to kind of even the score. And we're going to debate on the other side whether she's actually proving to the jury that she had a motive to murder. Patrick Mason, again, your expertise in the Mormon religion, was he breaking the rules, I guess is the bottom line?
Valez, because he had a girlfriend, obviously, and she gave him his last taste of sex for several hours, like they give death row men their last meal, and then proceeded to kill him because she didn't want anybody else to have him if she couldn't have him.
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating analysis. Very briefly, Simone Bienne, you're a sex expert. Do you think there might be some truth to that, like last meal before?
Yeah, I think there could be some truth to that. What I would like to add to that is, if she has been physically or sexually abused in her past from her early years, this kind of murderous rage that she has inside of her was clearly externalized, taken out on Travis. She felt degraded, like he used her, abused her, spat her out, didn't care for her feelings, just like perhaps we will hear more of she felt as a child. So if she hasn't processed any of that, if she hasn't gone to therapy, if she hasn't dealt with any of that, then it's almost like she could externalize all of this.
Simone, if people went to therapy, there'd be far fewer killings in this world. She claims her mother beat her with a spoon. If she had gone to a therapist and worked that out, or maybe in some kind of 12-step program, we wouldn't be here today. So much more. Intense debate to come on the show at the top of the hour. Nancy Grace looking at whether the jury could actually be buying into the defense case. Nancy, 8:10 Eastern, right here on HLN. On the other side, we're going to bring you more highlights, or lowlights, as it were, of Jodie's testimony and debate. Is she sealing her own fate?
Did your mom's beatings with the wooden spoon, did they continue in high school as well?
They continued for a short time, but I think as I turned 16, 17, I don't recall her carrying the wooden spoon around. She would just start grabbing whatever was available, like a hairbrush, or she had acrylic nails, so sometimes she would grab me and dig her nails into my skin.
That's Jodie Arias saying that she was abused and beaten by her mother and her father. Simone Bienne, relationship therapist. We know that women who are beaten as children often seek out abusive relationships to reenact it subconsciously to try to make it turn out better. Will the defense take that and meld it to the abuse they claim Jodie suffered at the hands of Travis Alexander?
Jane, you make a really good point. Yes, this all plays out. You try and change the ending, but the point is that so many of us have been through this and tried to change the ending. We don't go and murder the people who have abused us, and that
I get
is
that.
the point.
I get your point, but I'm trying to establish what the defense is going to do. They're going to bring a domestic violence expert. They're going to bring in a psychologist. We're trying to get a preview and try to understand the strategy. How could it tie together?
It can tie together in the sense that it could make her feel so murderous. Like you say, it gives her the motive. But we've got to remember, she kept going back again and again. So each time she goes back, she becomes more murderous, more rageful. It sounds like, to me, it was premeditated. She went a week before to go and get the gun. This is a woman who was so dead inside that sadly any kind of attention, whether it was abusive or not, was filling up that dead space. But that doesn't mean you go and murder somebody.
Yes, and you know what? There's a phrase for that, negative attention. If people can't get positive attention and they have that hole inside, they'll go for negative attention. At least it's attention. Compare and contrast two stories Jodie told. Now, one about those ninjas that came in and killed Travis. She's since recanted that. But listen to the comparisons here. That's the one story, and then there's one about a former boyfriend she claims, it's her claim, tried to strangle her. Listen.
He said, if you ever say anything about this,